day two of the NowInfinity webinar Bootcamp series. We are excited to have you all join us today for this informative session where we will be covering some key aspects of Corporate Messenger and the company profile. We have a live Q&A chat box available throughout our session, so feel free to post your questions and our panelists would do our best to answer them. Before diving into the content, let's just give a couple of minutes for the audience to join in. So sit back and get ready for an engaging session today. We'll be starting in just a moment. Great. Welcome to all those who have just joined us. For those who missed the introduction, my name is Rishi and I'll be your host for today's webinar on Corporate Messenger. In this session, we will be talking about Corporate Messenger and key aspects such as the company's list, assigning pins or account managers to companies, using bundle changes to create multiple forms for changes, refreshing company profiles and deaths, accessing shares, and fixing any share discrepancies between NowInfinity and ASIC. Remember, we have a live Q&A chat box available where you can ask questions and interact with our panelists. To make the most out of this session, I've also prepared a list of frequently asked questions for various topics in this webinar. These questions have been prepared beforehand, so they are different than the questions that you will be asking in the live Q&A chat box. So without any further delay, let's jump right into the first topic of today's webinar and look at the company's lists. Great. So the list of active companies under your list can be located from Menu, Corporate Messenger, and Companies. These would be a list of all the companies under your agent list currently. Now let's look at a few FAQ questions or frequently asked questions. The first one would be, how can I view archived or deregistered companies that were previously on NowInfinity under my agent list? To do this, you can simply click on the Show dropdown and click on either archived or deregistered. Archived companies are basically companies that do not exist on your agent list any longer, but previously were on NowInfinity. So you could still view documents that were previously created by you in the archived company section. Deregistered companies would be a record of deregistered companies with ASIC, and you should be able to open the company profiles as well as previously created forms for those companies as well. Great. So the next question, how can I download company details such as director names, registered address, principal address, or any information about my companies in an Excel spreadsheet? Okay, to do this, we can click on the Actions tab, click on Export to Excel, and choose the information that we want to export. You can either download it straight from the browser by clicking on the Export button, or you can enter your email address and have it exported via email. Details such as the company name and ACN will be present automatically in the report, and you have the option to choose all of the other details such as company type, registered address, principal address, officer details, director ID, date of registration, etc. Now, let's look at the next question. I've recently added a company on my agent list via the ASIC portal, and it does not appear on my active list of companies on NowInfinity. How can I refresh the list of my companies and bring the company into my agent list on NowInfinity? Okay, so this can be done again by clicking on the Actions tab and clicking on Refresh List of Companies. In this way, a request to refresh your list would be sent to ASIC, and the company should appear in a few minutes. Okay, next, how can I retrieve a list of companies or make changes to companies that have a certain director? Let's take an example, John Peters. Okay, so what I've done here basically is just typed in the name and clicked on the enter button. In this way, it's doing an advanced search where it's retrieving the list of companies that has John Peters within its company details. It could be an officer or a shareholder. So if you want to make, let's say, a change of address change for this director, you can simply, or an individual, you can simply click on selecting all of these companies, clicking on actions, and then, sorry, click on bundle changes and then change address. You should be able to select the individual name through the drop down, enter the address, select the signatories for all the companies, and click on Generate Forms. Remember, 1 minute, 1 minute's document and form will be created for each of those changes. And you can actually send all of these forms in bundle to the specific director or the signatory, if it's the same signatory, so that they receive all of the documents in one single email. This can also be replicated for changes to an address. Let's say you want a list of companies that have the suburb bundle within any of its addresses. So I would do the same, type in bundle and click the enter button. In this way, it would retrieve a list of all the companies that has bundle within its address. So we can see it's the company address, which means the principal place of business address. Select all of these companies, click on bundle changes, and change the address. Let's look at the different options that we have available under the bundle changes feature. So you can do multiple actions in terms of change of name and address, as well as appointing a new office holder for the company or seizing an office holder for multiple companies. You are also able to make all of these bundle changes from menu, corporate messenger, and the bundle edit feature. It would be the same. You could repeat the same process, either type in the address to, to effectively create a change of address form, or type in the individual name, and it should retrieve the same results for you. We are also able to add multiple companies to our agent list by clicking on the Actions tab, add multiple companies. Here we have two different options. We can either fill out the details within the screen or download an Excel spreadsheet, complete all the details within the spreadsheet, upload and import to create multiple 362 forms that can be signed and then lodged with ASIC. To add just one company under your agent list, you can click on Appoint an Agent under Corporate Messenger and fill out the 362 form that can be lodged with ASIC. Great. So now let's look at some of the features available for director ID purposes. We have a PIN that is automatically created for companies that at least do not have one director with a director ID specified on Corporate Messenger. So we can simply click on this column where it says urgent to add director ID, and it retrieves a list of all companies with at least one director not mentioned with a director ID on NowInfinity. We have a few options available with director ID. So either we can bulk import director ID for multiple directors at once using an Excel spreadsheet. We can also fill out multiple director ID data through the screen itself by clicking on Director Data Update. Or we can choose to send notifications to multiple directors using the bulk Director ID notifications. There is a default template that is available under Product Settings that can be configured or customized for you. So let's look at the pins functionality and how it is useful. Pins can be assigned to specific companies, and it allows us to have different annual statement cover letters that can be reviewed from menu, corporate messenger, product settings, and cover letters. For example, there could be a set of clients who are nonprofit and require certain text attached to the cover letter, or clients who prefer the annual statements to be posted to them only. There could be clients who do not have a debt with ASIC and do not require a certain portion of the annual statement included. So this basically allows us to amend the text for the cover letter and reattach it on the system so that the annual statement automatically picks up a specific cover letter depending on the pin associated with the company. It is easy to add pins on the system and assign them to companies. To do this, you can come into the companies list, click on Actions, Manage Pins, create a new pin. Next, you can select specific companies, click on Actions, Manage Pins, select that specific pin and apply the pin. In this way, you are able to select the pin and retrieve a list of companies with that specific pin and also download them as an Excel file. Let's look at assigning account managers and how that can be beneficial. Account managers can simply be assigned to companies by selecting specific companies, clicking on Actions, and Set Account Manager. There are a few key benefits of setting a specific account manager to companies. Firstly, you have the option to receive annual statements and late fee invoice notifications from ASIC directly to the account manager email address. Also, you are able to sort companies as per account managers on the companies list. Similar to pins, you have the option to select specific companies as per account managers and export them to Excel. Before moving on to the company profile or the shares page, let's quickly look at some more features available on the companies list. The companies with debt tab shows us companies that have debt overdue. On this page, we are also able to send ad hoc SMSs to the clients. The fees to pay ASAP shows companies that have a deadline approaching. By clicking on the company's name, you're able to see a company information summary, such as the name, ACN, addresses, officers, shareholders, etc. We are also able to download a PDF version of this summary. To open the company profile, we can either click on the magnifying glass icon or click on the See Full Profile button. Okay, so let's briefly look at some options available within the company profile. We have all of these forms that can be created via NowInfinity. We have company profile information such as the company name, shareholder details, officer details, as well as contact information that can be saved on the company profile, any overdue debts with ASIC, a summary about the company share structure, as well as any recent documents created on NowInfinity. It is suggested that each form is created and lodged before the next form is created to avoid any discrepancies with ASIC. So let's look at some of the frequently asked questions about the company profile. So how can I create an address change form or cease myself to be an agent? To create any of these forms, you can simply hover over the correct category and click on the relevant form so that an interview form starts. You can click on the next steps and fill out information as required and then complete the form. Next, I lodged a change with ASIC directly. How can I update the company profile to show the most recent updates? There are two ways of doing it. The first one is just to click on the refresh button besides the view tab, and that would send a request to ASIC to refresh the company profile. The other way to do it is to go under agent services, click on the form RA71 and request a data download for the company. In this way, again, a request to ASIC would be sent to refresh the company profile. Okay, how can I refresh debt for this company? You can just go over the company profile under the debt section and click on the check debt button. In this way, a debt refresh request would be sent to ASIC. Okay, I need to provide the client with the company statement as per ASIC and details held as per ASIC. How can I do this? This is similar to Form RA71, which was previously used for the company refresh request. But in this case, we will request a current company statement to show details as per ASIC held currently. Next, how can I store billing or signing contact information as well as email addresses for the director? To do this, we can go through the company profile under the contact information tab, click on edit, enter details or change any details as required, and click save. Some of these details would pre-fill automatically while sending annual statements out as the signatory or the billing details used for reminders or payment reminders. Director emails can also be saved under by clicking on the View dropdown, Officers, and saving it under the email address tab for any of the directors. Additionally, information such as the family group, reference number, corporate key, corporate trustee of, person authorized to sign on behalf of the shareholder, or the beneficial status, which means the beneficial owner of a particular shareholder, can also be stored within the company profile. We have different views available on the company profile. This is the main view that contains all company information. We have the officer's view that stores information such as the director ID, salutation, preferred name, email addresses, and phone numbers. We have the company timeline event that stores any forms that are created or lodged via NowInfinity. We can also create a manual event on the timeline by clicking on the plus icon on the timeline and storing any information as well as attaching any forms as required. We have the shares view where we can see some of the summary of the company share structure as well as look to amend any discrepancies as with ASIC. So let's look at this specific company share structure. We can see that there are two types of share classes, the share class A and the ordinary share class. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the A class shares with 11 number of shares issued and total amount paid being 11 as per both NowInfinity and ASIC. However, we see a share discrepancy with the ordinary shares where the number on the left under the number issued is basically what ASIC has stored, and the number on the right of this column is what is as per NowInfinity. So we can see that there are 20 additional shares issued as per NowInfinity and an additional of $10 for the amount paid as per NowInfinity, where ASIC has $12, but NowInfinity has a total amount paid for these shares as $22. Generally, when a form that is lodged via NowInfinity, the information that ASIC would receive is the same that NowInfinity would have a record of. So there wouldn't be any discrepancy in those cases. However, if there's a mistake correction form that has been lodged manually with ASIC, or if a certain form has been lodged directly with ASIC, this number would need to be updated manually in order to resolve this discrepancy. So let's look at where the discrepancy is coming from in the allotments table. We can see that a shareholder has a specific red warning sign available here, which shows that there is something going wrong with this shareholder. It's supposed to have 10 shares as per ASIC, but it currently has 30. So which means that we need to remove the additional 20 shares for the shareholder, which can be done by clicking on the delete icon and then clicking on save changes. In this way, the share discrepancy should be resolved. Now, looking at how the shares are stored on NowInfinity, we can see BO as one shareholding type, the other one as not BO, as trustee for ABC Trust. The difference in these is basically if it's BO, it means that the shareholder is the beneficial owner of the shares and holds the shares on behalf of themselves. If it's not BO, it basically means that it's holding the shares on behalf of a trust or a separate individual. In cases where the shareholder is holding shares on behalf of of someone, the beneficial status can actually be updated to show the correct beneficial owner name. So this information is not basically stored with ASIC. So you can basically just click on the pencil icon, update the trust name, and save this information. In cases where the shareholder is the beneficial owner as per asset, we wouldn't see the pencil icon appearing here. Going back to the shares page for this company, we can see any historical transactions that were made previously using forms on NowInfinity. However, if the transactions have been made directly with ASIC, or if this is a new company, you also have the option to download an Excel spreadsheet template and re-upload it so the share transactions appear under the transactions table. Additionally, we also have the option to download the following reports on this page: export the company information to PDF, export share registry or share registry per member in a PDF format or or in an Excel format, as well as export any company officers. Okay, so back on the main page, let's look at some of the shares related forms that we have available on NowInfinity. There's the shares cancellation form, shares issue, transfer of shares, extended form 484 that lets us do multiple changes such as address change, issue of shares, appointment of officers, all of it in one form. We have the dividend statement form, that document that can be created on NowInfinity, as well as form 280, 281, form 2205. In all of these circumstances, if you're unsure of the order in which specific form should be lodged to create a specific change, it is best to contact ASIC and seek information or advice on how the form should be lodged. Let's look at completing some of these forms, such as the share issue form or the transfer of shares form. So to create a share issue form, we can just click on the share management tab and the form 484C2, which would open with the shares allotment table. This is just a review or preview of how the share allotments are currently, and it requires a confirmation that everything is correct at the moment, and we are looking to make a certain change. So we click on the blue icon, wait for the form to pre-fill. The company information, ACN, should be pre-filled automatically, and we can start filling out the new shareholder or the existing shareholder details. So depending on the shares that we are looking to issue for this specific shareholder, we would type in the share class, the number of shares being issued, as well as the amount paid per share. We have the option to select a specific share certificate number, or we can leave it blank, mention the date of issue, and complete all of these details before moving on to the next page and confirming how the estimated shareholdings would look like. Choose between the documents to generate whether you want minutes, resolution, or just a form to be created along with the ASIC form. Select the director that you want to sign appear on the ASIC form. Confirm that all of the details are correct, move on to the next page and click complete. So this is how the document should be created along with the ASIC form. There would be a minutes that we expect to be generated on the collaborations page, along with the e-signing functionality available on this page. Next, let's look at the transfer of shares document. Again, with the transfer of shares document, it is available under the shares management tab, and we click on the form 484C3. It pops up with a confirmation of whether the shares allotment is correct as per now. So we can confirm everything is correct, and we are looking to make a change. Wait for the form to pre-fill some of the details, such as the company name, ACN. The date of share transfer would automatically pre-fill, but you have the option to change any of those details, backdate them if required, and there would be a late fee for depending on the lodgement deadline. But yes, we do have the option. We have the option to select the transferor or the seller. In this case, let's select this specific shareholder with 15 A-class shares and say that they are transferring 10 shares out of these 15 shares. Now, the consideration paid amount would populate automatically, but you have the option to enter your consideration paid amount if it's different than the amount paid. Now, just a clarification here, it does this consideration paid amount that is entered here does not update the amount paid as per ASIC. In order to change the amount paid, a form would need to be lodged with ASIC directly, and then you can start the share transfer via NowInfinity if required. This is just for documentation purposes. The consideration paid amount would appear on the minutes document or the resolution as consideration paid, but it is different than the original amount paid as per ASIC. In the transferee section, you have the option to select an existing shareholder or a new shareholder. So let's just select an existing shareholder, select Class A shares. Now, the total number of shares that are being sold in this transfer should be equal to the number of shares bought in this transfer. So if we just mention 10, it's going to throw up um, with no error. But if we put some other number, let's say 8, then it's going to give us an error saying that the numbers do not match up. So let's make sure that the number of shares are equal on both the seller and the buyer side before moving ahead. Confirm that the shareholdings are correct after the specific transaction. Select the preferences for the share certificates, how you want them to and display certain information, whether you want the consideration to be displayed on the share certificate or a nominal value as per the original amount paid. Moving on to the authorization page where you select the director, declare that the information is true and correct before completing the documentation. It's very similar to how the issue of shares document was created along with the collaboration and the e-signing. Just a very important reminder here is to ensure that each form is created and lodged with ASIC before the next form is created on NowInfinity to avoid any discrepancies, specifically with shares and also with any other changes between NowInfinity and ASIC. Now that we saw how the issue of shares and transfer of shares can be used for proprietary companies, let's also see how they can be used for public companies. Going back into the shares page, we can see the company share structure similar to proprietary companies. However, the minor change is that ASIC only records the total number of shares issued and total amount paid for the entire company share structure. It does not record the individual or corporate shareholdings for any of the specific shareholders. However, we have a way of recording these details on NowInfinity. So you can click on the Add Non-ASIC Shareholder button to record these individual or corporate shareholder details. Enter information such as the name, address, number of shares held, class, and the amount paid. Once that is done, this information will be available in the allotments table as not listed in ASIC, but only for your record purposes. So just discussing how the issue of shares and transfer of shares documents can be used. Because ASIC only records the company share structure, an issue of shares document can be created and lodged via NowInfinity to ASIC, demonstrating the changes in the overall number of shares issued for the company. However, because the transfer of shares document does not change the total number of shares issued for the entire company share structure. For example, if any of the shareholders transfers shares to each other, the total number of shares still remains the same as 100 A-class shares and 150 ordinary shares. In that case, ASIC cannot actually detect any changes to the company share structure, and the form cannot be lodged with ASIC. However, the documents can be kept on record for your purposes. Let's move on to the last section of this webinar series episode, where we will talk about the notification center setting under Corporate Messenger. The notification center is a place to find any incoming messages from ASIC, such as the daily debt reports, any validation reports for requests lodged via NowInfinity, any late fee invoices for companies, Any current company statements returned by ASIC. These are not the annual statements, but these are just the requests that we lodged previously to request a company statement. Any change of name certificates returned for 205 forms lodged via NowInfinity. Any discrepancies between NowInfinity and integrations like GradeSoft or XPM, or any changes identified on company profiles. We also have the option to archive each of these notifications one at a time, and also select all or multiple notifications and bulk archive them. Finally, if you have any further queries, please feel free to contact our customer service team by calling us on 1300-851-057 or emailing us at support@nowinfinity.com.au. These details are available under the menu page. You can also contact us by clicking on the help icon and contacting us via chat during business hours or leaving a message after business hours. To access any knowledge base articles, you can click on the Help Center icon on the top right of the page and click on Help Center to access any knowledge base articles. You can also access guided walkthroughs, e-learning and training, onboarding webinar, and new releases on NowInfinity through this page. Thank you all for joining us in today's informative session about corporate messenger and company profiles. Like I said before, please feel free to contact us if you have any further queries. We also have other webinar episodes running, so do keep an eye out for those, and we hope to see you there. Until then, have a great day and take care.